biodigesters, and scientists and policymakers from Sudan to Saudi Arabia to Turkey are exploring the cradle-to-cradle model of industrial ecology. On a larger scale, when I visited the cutting-edge Masdar city in the United Arab Emirates with a team from National Geographic, we learned that Masdar is leading the region in the waste-to-energy initiative. An article in the national UAE newspaper said that the city of Abu Dhabi produces 1 million tons of municipal waste a year, so much that if it was all put in a landfill, the landfill would equal the size of the city itself in 1 generation. However, the article said, quote, biological conversion of organic fractions of waste has great potential to produce renewable fuels and biochemicals. It also has a valuable byproduct, a nutrient-rich residue that can be used as fertilizer or compost in combating desertification by putting nutrients back into the UAE's farmlands, end quote. On a small scale or a large scale, the truth is that doing this is actually easy and cost-effective, and it is something that humanity has understood since history began. It's time we went back to get to the future. The Middle East, with its rich history as the cradle of civilization, may be the best place to lead the way. Because my not-for-profit organization, Solar Cities, believes that food waste is the most accessible, universally available form of stored solar energy that can be readily transformed into useful commodities like biochemicals and energy and fertilizer, and that the Middle East is a great place to engage in this work, we began implementation of the small-scale biodigestion solution in Jordan with the Clinton Global Initiative this January of 2017. Angela Farhan Al-Fayez, a Bedouin Jordanian graduate student at the Patel College, and Inas Abdulrahman, a Palestinian graduate student studying environmental technology in Israel, and I traveled from the Arava Institute at Kibbutz Keturah in southern Israel, where we had built 2 salchicha or sausage biodigesters in 2001 with home biogas founder Yair Teller, and we carried them across the Allenby Bridge or King Hussein Bridge border, carrying 2 home biogas commercial family-scale domestic digesters to introduce them to Jordan. These biodigesters come unassembled in a box small enough to fit in a taxi and are like the IKEA furniture version of biogas systems. They're part of a worldwide effort to make the systems that transform food wastes into fuel and fertilizer home appliances, just like washing machines and refrigerators and water heaters and backyard composters. In fact, they are a form of backyard compost system and are referred to as liquid composters because rather than using air to decompose the organic waste, they simply immerse organic garbage in water without air and let microbes, obtained through inoculation with any animal manure, even lake mud, do the composting. The systems are safe and easy to use at home. You just scrape your plate or throw the food residuals in the front and you get high-quality liquid fertilizer from the back and up to 3 hours of cooking gas per day from 1 bucket of food scraps. The gas is stored in a balloon above the flexible plastic digester bag, which gets enough pressure to cook with from sandbags placed on top. It's quite simple. My Solar Cities colleague Inas Abdulrahman and I were able to take 2 home biogas systems with us on the bus across the Jordanian border to meet USF student Angela Al-Fayez, and after conducting an hour-long interview with the border authorities, which we turned into an impromptu workshop for the customs guards, they allowed us to bring them into the country. For the record, they only did so this time after sending our colleague, Mohammed Attiya, who owns the permaculture training farm where we're teaching these technologies, all the way to Amman, an hour and a half away, to get a stamp of approval from the Ministry of Energy. They also charged us a 40% import tax, but told us that in the future, if we can get approval from the Prime Minister's office showing the importance of this simple technology for sustainable development, future shipments should be tax exempt. Now, while I was unhappy to have to shell out so much money to get our initiative started, I know that this is the CODB, or the cost of doing business. In new initiatives where people are unfamiliar or skeptical about a technology or an idea, somebody has to assume the risks and the costs and endure the skepticism and even derision to get people to recognize the inherent value in the Nexus approach. And for rather vexing reasons, this particularly central Nexus technology for the transformation of food waste into value-adding products is still a relatively unknown or misunderstood process. People who champion this nexus solution are still far to the left of Rogers' curve describing the diffusion of innovations. A brief reconsideration of Maloney's 16% rule, mapped onto Rogers' innovation diffusion curve, shows us where we need to get to. A place past the tipping point, where closing the cycle from food waste to food is simply something everybody does, a kind of sine qua non, without which not. Unfortunately, we see on the left of the chasm that the driver for adoption of a given idea or technology, like small-scale urban biodigesters, for example, is based on scarcity. And in this paradigm, innovators and early adopters are often sadly motivated by feeling special, by being the first kids on the block to have an innovation. They often tromp around calling themselves wizards worthy of Hogwarts Magic School, while the rest of the population, generally conservative, skeptical spectators or inactives, are haughtily considered by the early adopters to be mere muggles. With this kind of polarization, it is no wonder that it is hard to cross the chasm. But Nexus thinking sees us all as visionaries in some way or another, each of us merely seeing a different and important reality along a different axis of importance and priority. In Nexus thinking, all perspectives need consideration and most have value. They just need to be integrated, as in that metaphor about the blind men and the elephant. Our journey to maximize the common good along many axes relies on us creating social proof as the motivator rather than scarcity, so that everyone can see the benefits of crossing the tipping point into a new paradigm. And that's how paradigm shifts happen. At some point, the majority, the mass of people, have to find it almost inconceivable that anybody would not transform their organic wastes in the city, both from food waste and toilet waste, in situ into high-value food and fertilizer and, once again, new food. Instead of feeling special because we're the few that do this, we need to feel that there's actually something strange, odd, wrong with anyone who doesn't do this. This way, instead of being the few, we become the many in the few nexus. But getting there is a psychological, marketing, socio-political process. It requires emotional intelligence, or EQ, as well as IQ, and technocratic skills. So what we learn from this is that nexus thinking must include the proper social and political preparations, even when a technology is undeniably simple, effective, and inexpensive. The social and political dimensions rival economic considerations in their weight and must be thought through. Those of us who consider ourselves innovators, early adopters, technologists, visionaries, and creators in the food, energy, water nexus domain must be prepared to invest considerable time and energy in helping others see all the benefits that we see in each relevant dimension. In my own work, I've learned the value of having faith in holding vision and in making investments with extremely long-term payback horizons. I've realized that my personal ROI, or return on investment, must include various other forms of capital besides financial. By being willing to earn social capital, intellectual capital, and cultural capital through my work, and seeing how I can accumulate or regenerate natural capital, I offset the loss in financial capital.